we mentioned him last week, Noah Smith. The guy
Yes,
who
Noah Smith.
seems like he's rage baiting, but it's actually really him. It's like, let's see. Here we go.
Yeah, this again, like this one person posting the excerpt for the Economist article, China's high-tech rise is leaving much of the country behind. And Noah Smith just decided to put in his 2 cents. He said, Xi Jinping's economy does not exist for the benefit of regular Chinese people. It exists for national greatness. Now, this is coming from a guy who have never set foot onto mainland China. He admitted this to me in our debate 5 years ago, before, during COVID. He said he has been to Hong Kong, but he never set foot on mainland China. He does not speak Chinese. And as far as I know, he has not since set foot on mainland China. So this guy has never been to China, yet continuously pontificating on Chinese culture, politics, etc., and posing as a public American public intellectual, a China joining the China debate, and the saying that he's saying that China's economy is not for the regular Chinese people. This is just preposterous. For anyone who has been to China, who has lived in China for extended period of time, you will see the tremendous progress China has made, and the dramatic improvement in the quality of life. I lived in China in the 1980s. I remember the days when we need ration papers to buy anything, to buy cooking oil or clothes or food. Like the level of abundance that exists in China today, which is not imaginable back when I was growing up. So to say that somehow the China's economic growth is not for the regular Chinese people, this is just bullshit, man. Like that just means he has never interacted with any real Chinese people
100%.
in China.
100%. It is the average person. It is the middle class. It is the lower class that actually he has the highest approval rating with. These are the people who love what he's doing. And on the contrary, it is the ultra rich who are far more concerned or worried because they know that there's more scrutiny under them for corruption, for all this stuff. And they also know that if they had the same amount of wealth in any Western country, they would be allowed to rule over society. I mean, look at Occupy Wall Street. That's what that whole thing was about the wealth gap, was about the inequality. And what happened since then? Nothing happens with protests there. It got worse since then. So it is the complete opposite of what they're talking about. And it's exactly what, I know it's getting old to say, but every accusation, that's exactly what this is as well. Yeah, we have, so that was Noah Smith's one, number 8, still economic. Here we go. I think, is this commenting on the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, these articles are so outrageous. It generated a lot of response. Justine Haug, he said, I broadly agree with, and he said the last part of her response is very important. So this is actually, she's responding. Okay, no, this is responding to an interview with Jessica Chen Wise. And so Jessica Chen Wise's original article he wrote, I'm very much of the view that the drive towards self-reliance was not an effort to dominate other countries or even these supply chains, but rather to secure a position that was unsaleable, and that the means of achieving security was not being so dependent on others. And is in China's economy, there are many different actors that often overperform in search of a particular target. And it's wildly inefficient system where we can see that in their investment in semiconductors or in their EV right now, where every locality has their own kind of EV company. So there's this vast oversupply of things that the central government has sort of targeted. And so in some cases, there have been targets that were set. Sometimes they have overshot. But I do not think that emphasis or intention really was to weaponize them against the rest of the world. Although, I will say the Chinese government has very much learned from the United States application of extraterritorial export control in building export control system that they have now began to roll out. She's talking about the rare earth, and it's true. I mean, this couldn't be more obvious right now in the Chinese drive towards self-sufficiency has really paid off in the time when the Strait of Hormuz was being choked off. This because the China's massive overcapacity in solar, in wind, in hydro, and soon nuclear. China is being able to provide 86% of its own primary energy. China's oil import actually dropped. This at the same time when the production has kept going, this is going to be the year where China's oil consumption is probably peaking. And this is actually saving the rest of the world. When China is not buying as much oil in the world market, it's making it cheaper for other countries like India, Indonesia, and other countries that depend on oil imports. And again, like this is nothing about trying to weaponize against the rest of the world. It's everything about building self-sufficiency so China cannot be choked off, like as the U.S. Navy often claim, with like a chokehold on Chinese energy supply through the Strait of Malacca. Everything in China is centered around self-sufficiency and security. And this is why I was explaining people why China did this massive drive to popularize EVs, because China do not want to be dependent on foreign oil imports forever. By having EVs, China can generate this electricity for those EV internally, because China have massive power generation that's not dependent on oil and gas. And so it makes sense to have them to build all those high-speed rail that's powered by electricity. It makes sense to have them run transport on EVs, and now they're transitioning to even trucks, to electric trucks. Right. So this is the idea that somehow China is doing this to weaponize against the rest of the world. Again, this is 100% projection.
Right. Yeah. China never really prioritized turning their economy into a weapon, turning parts of its economy into a weapon. But you can be sure as hell that the U.S. is incentivizing that. They are incentivizing that so that they have retaliatory measures. Like they don't really have much at their disposal. Rare earths is a big one, but that came out only after they were being attacked. And lucky they had at least something, because it allowed the U.S. to back off of it. I think what's perhaps an even bigger problem than that is China's production and the types of products they're doing is they are giving other countries a way to exit from America's economic weapons across the board. I mean, the fact that so many countries are looking at EVs now because of the crisis that was caused by the U.S., this is going to reduce their reliance on an oil market that in many ways is largely controlled by the U.S. They're able to affect the price of oil around the world by their actions really easily. Obviously, you also have more countries looking at the renminbi as a trade settlement option. That is also going to be an exit from a highly weaponized U.S.-dominated system. That's probably the bigger issue. But they have to frame it as China's building economic, weapons. But the bigger issue is that China is building an exit from U.S. economic weapons. I think that's what I think is going on. What do you think?
Exactly. You nailed it, because right now a lot of the countries are experiencing economic issues, like where I am in Indonesia, where the currency is falling, depreciating, especially in relationship to U.S. dollars, and yet countries like Indonesia, which needed those dollars to do their imports, see their import costs risen, and so what you're going to have is devaluation of the local currencies, inflation, and people's livelihood is getting impacted. If they had what China had, this is why China's productive capacity is actually what insulated it from the crisis that just happened. And if this country for example, didn't have to deal with the US dollars, they would have avoided a lot of these current problems that they're besetted with. But you're right, like the United States is really alarmed that there might be a drive away from the US dollar due to the policies that the United States government itself is pushing. And so they wanted to shift the focus to China bad. You know, don't be like China.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if this is a repeat because I see I've got another Noah Smith one here. Let's see.
I think it's a comment on the Noah Smith.
Right.
So yeah, he just saying like, look, this is one of the most off-target criticism of Xi I can think of, and he just corresponded to what you said earlier. Xi is actually more popular among working class people and those in the rural area than urban elite. I can confirm this, you know, just through my own network of friends and families. This is because his heavy focus on poverty alleviation, rural development, and bringing the wealthy. Yes, like a lot of the rich Chinese I know they don't like Xi Jinping, but Xi Jinping is a lot more popular among the working class people. Yeah.
You know, probably what's driving China maxing also. Well, yeah, I'll start off with saying, do you remember when NPR and CGTN worked together on a poverty alleviation documentary that really went into depth into how China solved China's poverty problem and had one of the biggest upliftings from poverty ever in the history of our planet. And it really is amazing. I mean, it was just so well planned out how they had different government workers going into these villages and also giving, not only just giving handouts, but giving villagers the tools for sustainability. And you know what happened to that documentary, right? When it was scheduled to air in the US?
Yeah, it got canned. The U.S. politician went up in arms. And like these are actually a really well-made documentary. I learned a lot from that. I saw like they have like I think there was a segment on like a rural county around Chongqing, and they have these university students from Chongqing. They actually travel to these remote villages to act as monitors, making sure those officials are doing their job in the poverty alleviation. They actually audit them, make sure they're not pocketing the funds or say they're doing things but actually not following up. And so it was quite enlightening how to understand in concrete steps how Chinese government was able to lift 800 million people out of extreme poverty. But again, that's something they do not want to show to American people because you might get the wrong ideas.
Not only you get the wrong idea, but China and Xi Jinping is actually applying and addressing all of the things that the people in the West want addressed, cracking down on tech billionaires, lifting people out of poverty, focusing on the lower class or the middle class, that being the priority. Like he's literally answering the dreams and hopes that Westerners have and hope that their government will address. And imagine how devastating that would be, saying, hold on a second, the country you're telling us to hate is doing all the things for us that we want you to do for us. Then these campaigns against China all of a sudden start making sense. We have.
I mean, this is why China maxing is a thing among the youngers, among the Zoomers. This is mostly a reaction against what they see as this corrupt Epstein government is like squeezing their own citizens and choking off the future prospect of the youth. So they rather look to China as an alternative example. And and this is mostly, again, mostly it was driven by the youth themselves. But you will have American politicians like Hillary Clinton who will say, oh, this is because the Chinese Communist Party is using TikTok to influence our young, misleading our youth, spreading anti-Semitism against Israel. Totally unacceptable.
They really have to keep it secret how the West, particularly the U.S., actually works. I mean, I remember back when Julian Assange, and he's been, kind of neutered since then, but he said it so well when he was talking about the war in Afghanistan, and he was being asked about, winning the war in Afghanistan. And he said the point isn't to win the war. The point is to draw it out as long as possible so that they can wash money from the U.S. tax base into weapons manufacturers. And then obviously those weapons manufacturers fund the same politicians who are making the decisions to spend U.S. tax dollars on those kinds of things, whether it be through tax dollars or whether it be through printing more money, which ultimately reduces the value of the money that U.S. citizens do have. And when you really look at that, when you really look at how the whole system is designed, you are literally stuck in this dystopian corporation that is just designed to suck you dry and support the upper class. And people are waking up to that. It probably would have happened even without the help of looking onto China and seeing a model where it's being, where there's a system that actually can serve the people. But I would imagine you could only keep that lie up for so long. You could only hide that reality from people for so long. And obviously it's falling apart now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have, this is another one you've sent over. Patents.
Yes. So the story from Reuters is China owned more than 11,000 German developed patents. Study shows the actual story is actually China went out and bought and paid for those German patents. And the quote tweet says, "Did you know China has a database of foreign patents, the patent holders, researcher, and companies?" People could probably guess that part. Did you know they also score them by expected value and other metrics? So no, this isn't an accident or natural evolution. Again, this balding guy, he's just like Gordon Chan. He's implying like China is engaging in systematic industrial espionage. Look, China went to pay and bought for those patents. I mean, like, it's all above the table. And so the reply guy said, "Did you know that patents are public information and you can find copy of every patent ever filed anywhere simply by going to WIPO's website?" Now, this actually says is that China is actually taking public intellectual property seriously now. That's why they went ahead and bought them. They bought those commercial patents so they can be. And another reason China does that is because China is very good at scaling. They're very good at commoditizing the production and scaling,
bringing it to life,
and make it like affordable for everyone. Like China have mastered that into an art. So that is a part that West has difficulty to compete with. They're have difficulty to compete with China's massive economy of scale. And of course, Chinese industry are often very cutthroat and competitive. But it's just they can't compete, so they have to continue to manufacture those narratives to paint China as bad when it doesn't really help them. It doesn't really help them to compete with China by just by producing this kind of copiants.
Yeah, I mean the patent system was designed obviously to protect ideas if they're your own, so that you can monetize it yourself, or you can get compensated for creating that idea. And China's doing exactly what was intended. They are compensating people for those patents, but when they buy them, they're wording it as being seized. And yet, America owns 1/3 of all of Germany's foreign patents also. But again, if America buys it, it is a regular economic activity. If China buys it, it's an issue, and it's being quote unquote seized, as they say. We have this is a good one. Here we go. It's another one of yours.
So this is I wasn't being facetious when it said U.S. is alarmed that China is trying to cure cancer, because you actually read the article, talking about China's rise in the drug development. It talk about China is trying to find cures for cancer, different drugs for treating cancer. And this is what alarms the Western pharmaceutical companies, because they don't actually want to cure cancer. They want to be able to want you to have those conditions, but they will sell you drugs just to treat the symptoms.
Treatment is more profitable than a cure.
Exactly, because that threatened their business model. Their business model is collecting rent. This is a lot of the Western economic activity now is rent seeking, by these oligarchic companies. Yeah.
I mean, you've got cars now that you have to pay a monthly fee to activate the heated seats. Like, it's like, come on, and it lends credibility to quote unquote conspiracy theorists who say that we could have long figured out a lot of many cures for cancer, but a lot of the times there's something on the table that gets scrapped. Like, you always hear this big breakthrough, like this, young scientist. I remember there was a Canadian high schooler from Canada also, who came up with this really amazing possible cure that was showing a lot of promise. He was this genius kid, and then one of the companies bought it up, and it just kind of disappeared afterwards. Now, people might say, well, maybe it didn't pass trials, it didn't go through it, but there are people who always thought, no, they're not trying to find a cure. And this lends credibility to that theory, where all of a sudden somebody else is close to finding a cure, or they're prioritizing finding a cure, and they're saying, oh, this is bad. They had the previous article a couple of years ago saying China might be curing cancer too fast, or China is curing cancer, but at what cost? The famous words, but at what cost? Like, I mean, this reveals
$1 billion to the U.S. pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, they won't actually say that, but that's the truth.